Okay, so probably for sure the most controversial changes that we have in the curriculum are dealing with knife. Um, and I mean, there's a whole litany of reasons of why we've taken the approach that we've taken. And I'll kind of preface this by saying, no, I've not been in a dozen knife fights, whatever that is. So if that's a disqualifier, then I'm disqualified. But I've also never been raped, and I teach rape prevention workshops. And I have never been assaulted with an AK-47. So if that's a disqualifier, there's that. But I don't think you're going to run into a lot of people that have successfully dealt with knife. I say this all the time. To me, knife is the scariest weapon to have to deal with, not just because of the knife, but because of the person that's holding it. A gun is a distance weapon. I can stand here. I never have to get hands on. A knife, I have to be willing to take a piece of steel, a piece of metal, and run it through skin and bone and muscle and tendon. It's always live. It doesn't fail. It doesn't run out of ammo. But the person with the knife is a different kind of animal than somebody that's willing to stand at 7 yards and get on the ground kind of thing. So for me, knife is easily the most daunting, scary weapon that there is. Which I think is important to note because of the fine motor movements that are required in a lot of approaches to dealing with knife. The hand-eye coordination that's involved, the proprioception that's involved, it's very difficult to do the bilateral symmetry where I'm trying, if Brad's doing like an overhead stab, where I'm trying to get this terribly accurate and this terribly accurate at the same time. I'm trying to take these two knuckles and put them on that chin. And at the same time, I'm trying to get my wrist on his wrist. All while I have to understand that I may die. So it's not just eye-hand coordination where I have to deal with, well, I gotta get this happening and this happening at the same time, which is already hard. It's hard to get both of your hands to do different things at the same time. It's hard to get both hands to do the same thing at the same time if it's fast. Try catching two balls that somebody throws at you at the same time. Try catching them. It's very difficult. And I'm not worried about dying. But now to ask somebody to get one hand to do one thing and the other hand to do the other thing at the same time, and be terribly accurate and terribly powerful, strong with them. Because what tends to happen is either this one is really strong or this one is really strong, but it's hard to get both of them to be really strong. These are divergent energies. I'm trying to be strong in this direction and in this direction at the same time while being terribly accurate. While knowing that if I screw it up, I'm probably going to end up with a knife in my chest. So the idea that I can kind of, in, let's say this movement is taught, I don't know, let's say the average class is seeing this twice a month. You got average students training 2 times a week, an hour each time. With that, you got warm-up, combative training, defense work, and some kind of a drill probably. So in an hour's work, maybe if they're training this, maybe they're getting 15 minutes on it. Well, let's say that's happening twice a month. So now that's 30 minutes out of a month to do something that's terribly difficult to do. Requires fine motor skills. Look, when you start talking about using your hands, especially once we get past this part And now I'm having to transition to wrist control and these kinds of things where I'm using my hands. This is fine motor, okay, right? When the difference in fine motor is hands, gross motor would be more arms, right? It's really hard to do. And I'm asking people, normal, regular, everyday folks, to be able to ascertain and absorb a fine motor movement like that under extreme stress, training it 30 minutes out of a month, maybe, assuming they don't miss one of those classes. I just don't think it's terribly realistic. And then just the movement itself is never really trained live, ever. I've been to 100+ training centers throughout the world, and I've never seen the student, the defender, defend as hard as they could and actually counterattack as hard as they could at the same time. Ever. I've never seen it. Where they're having to take their two knuckles and actually make contact with that chin. And it's not because people don't want to do it, it's because you're not going to have any students if you do that. So you can't ever really train it even close to live to actually see if I can actually make contact here and make the stop here at the same time. Whereas if we're wrestling, we can wrestle at almost 100% from both sides, 100% close, push and pull, real energy, real time, real pressure from the bad guy and the defender. And I know people say, well, but you don't understand the nature of the. I do understand it. That's why I'm saying we do it this way. It's because I understand it. Look, I did this for a dozen years. To think that under this kind of stress, I'm going to make that shot every time is just not realistic. Think about when you spar and how many times you throw a punch and miss. And that's with a big glove on. Now I'm trying to take that 16-ounce glove that's this wide and condense it to that. And again, I'm not worried in sparring about catching a knife hilt deep in my chest. The other thing that I hear all the time, yeah, but in Krav Maga we treat punches and knife the same. Bullshit. You don't. You don't. Again, I've been to 100+ Krav Maga training centers. I've never, ever, not one time, ever seen people sparring, and when the punch is thrown, somebody actually just throw whatever. Somebody actually making a defensive counter at the same time, and then going and getting wrist control and making a cavalier. So, if we're treating every punch as if there were a knife in it, why isn't that happening? It never happens, ever, never, ever, ever. It doesn't translate. It doesn't work. People intuitively know it doesn't work. They can't make it work, and it just isn't realistic. So, what tends to happen is it becomes more of a wrestling match or a grappling match, or this guy just lets me have what he knows I'm supposed to be trying to get. That's what tends to happen. So our approach is, if people are gonna have to gravitate towards more gross motor skills and really understand the inherent energies and pressures that are going to come with this, he can only push or pull. That's it. He can push, or I can hit him and get some measure of control, and he can pull. There's nothing else. There's no other energy he can give me. He can push or pull. So I would like to be able to take more gross motor movements, focus my energy on where the problem is, because the other thing people will say is, well, when he's trying to stab me or whatever, keep eyes center mass, right? I want to look here, and so I'm taking my binocular vision and I'm focusing here. Well, but while I'm focusing here, I'm trying to be terribly accurate here and terribly accurate here at the same time. Let me tell you something. As soon as this person realizes that there's something shiny in that hand, this is what our eyes are going to do. That's where the eyes are going to go. So now it's going to be even harder for me to make an accurate punch over here. Because my eyes are going to focus on where the problem is. So instead of trying to be strong here, trying to be strong here, trying to be accurate here, trying to be accurate here, trying to get this hand to do this and this hand to do this, we're going to get both hands doing the same thing at the same time. We're going to concentrate all of our energy to one place, the place where the knife is. And then we're going to use the skill sets and the moves and the movements that our students have been working since day one. They come in and they're doing arm drags and they're pummeling and they're getting real energies. By the time they see a knife, all of this stuff is second nature. It's not a whole new skill set. It's not some ethereal magic, you know, boom, I do this, he falls down, I get my wrist grab, which you can teach a 12-year-old to escape in 20 seconds. This is not control. I have a hard time even getting around Brad's wrist, and Brad's not terribly big. So I want people, A, to feel more confident in the defense, because they can, with the way that our approach is, they can actually do it. They can actually go get the problem and address it, and he can actually give me real energy back. Whereas before, it's a leap of faith. He makes the stab, the leap of faith is, boom, I got you. Well, okay, I guess, but I never actually really get to do it. So, for me, when we're talking about something so terribly scary and daunting, I would rather not have a leap of faith. That's why I got out of traditional martial arts 15 years ago. It's all a leap of faith. And I'm not talking poorly about traditional martial arts. They have their place as long as we're honest about what that place is. So when Brad makes that attack, and I can concentrate all of my energy, all of my power, gross motor movement into the same area, the same place. My margin for error is much greater here than here. It's not even close. Now when I get there, when I get to this position, students, for us, with us, have spent so much time working arm drags and working 2-on-1s and actually feeling this energy and this push and this pull that this is nothing to them, relatively speaking. Right? It's never, things may be simple, but they're not going to be easy. If he's really trying to stab me, it's never going to be easy. It's going to be hard. And these are no magic pills. I told you yesterday that, you know, I think it's Gabe Suarez and the Dog Brothers have a night video out called Die Less Often. I think it's a brutally honest approach to dealing with it. Now, I don't know the techniques. I have no idea. But the title tells me that at least on some level, they get how much of a problem edge weapons are. So when our students are making this entry, which is, look, it's this, but instead of here, and trying to be strong here and here and accurate here and here, I'm just taking both. I'm redoubling this same 90-degree kind of concept, and boom, going to where the real problem is, the real issue is. This. My weight is behind the attack. I have a huge margin for error. Here and here. From this position, if I want to throw a knee as I'm transitioning to my 2-on-1, great. That's fine. Now I get to choose, hopefully, depending on how much time I'm spending in this range, the energies. Because again, he can push or pull me. So when I get to this 2-on-1, and I've got all this body on him, I've got a lot of tactile sensitivity here. Not this. Not this. Just think for a second. Forget you've trained in anything ever at all. And let's analyze this. Just look at it. Versus this. It's not even close. My ability to control from here versus my ability to control from here, we're not even on the same planet. And from this position, if I decided that I needed to or wanted to, look, I can still make strikes from here. I can headbutt from here. I get my hips square to Brad. I'm outside of his elbows. He's inside of mine. I can push. He lives to push me back. I can to the floor. As opposed to me being out here in space like this, where A, I'm not addressing any of this, and B, I'm doing something that everybody knows is terribly easy to escape. And this is all fine motor stuff. It requires my hands, my fingers. Fine motor. Under extreme stress. I fuck this up, I'm going to be stabbed in the heart. That's pretty stressful. And it requires me to recognize all these things in real time. Shit. He's about to stab me. Even if I don't think he's about to stab me, he's about to punch me. Whatever it is. Okay? You're going to have a reactionary gap. There's going to be a process that's got to take place there. People say, well, you get a burst and you don't understand this and that and the other. If your technique relies on you being able to burst, you're screwed. If I have the time to burst, awesome, do it. But if you don't recognize it in real time, and without the burst it doesn't work, then you're going to be in trouble. Because for your feet to move, everything else has to move. That means that's the slowest thing you can do. My hands get out, my body follows, and then my feet go if I can. So when Brad makes the stab, yes, I want to be here. I want to go get it. But I can't rely on that happening every time. It's also worth noting, look, we spend an insane amount of time on the pre-contact stuff, preemption, not allowing it to get to this point in the first place. I told you yesterday, the only time I've ever faced anybody with a knife, he never even got it out of his pocket. He went reaching for it, and I hit it. That was it. That's the only time I've ever dealt with anybody that there was a knife involved at all. And I would hope that that's the way my students would handle it if they would see it. But if I'm not giving them the options, if we're not telling them, okay, in this range, at this moment in time, you want to be working outside the elbows, you want to get your hands up, you want to have a dialogue. I'm trying to de-escalate, but I'm also trying to set him up if I need to. If I'm not aware of what's going on around me, and I don't see that hand disappear, I don't recognize that, there are some echolalic or echoproxic kind of things happening in here, I'm going to be in real trouble from this range if he goes first. But from this range, if all of a sudden that hand disappears, and I understand that, then that's my time, that's my go, that's my action trigger. But look, if people can make this work, great, more power to them. If they can do this, and then this, and then this, awesome, get after it. But what I know is, from day one, our students are working arm drags. Our students are pummeling. Our students are working this 2-on-1 kind of stuff, where when they get to this part with the weapons, it's nothing. Our students are doing arm drags like most people are doing shoulder touches. They are feeling real energy, real pressure from go. And by the time they get to where this guy has a knife, now it's not a terribly new thing. Yes, there's a knife involved, but the moves and movements, they don't change. They're the same as what we've been doing since foundation levels. So, and look, if and this is our system as a whole, if next week I see something that I think, or Jeff sees something, or Andre sees something that we think, you know what, that's worth looking at. We should take a look at that, and then we can drill it for 3-4 months, work different kind of groups, different people with experiences, different kinds of pressures, and we think that it's better than what we're doing now. then in 6 months, that's what we'll be doing. We're not beholden to some principle or technique or anything like that just because that's the way it's always been done. I don't care about that. People that have been with us for a while, they've seen things change already. We've drilled some of them today with the gun defenses. You know, to me, that's the way it has to be. It's the way it needs to be. But if I don't have some way of quantifying my ability to actually do this in real time, it's going to be very difficult. And now, from a student's perspective, if I've never really been able to defend this at anywhere close to full speed, then when it actually happens, am I really going to believe that I'm able to do it? That's a problem. If I don't really believe in my ability to stop a guy that's trying to plunge a knife into my chest, that's a real problem. And we're just looking at this one. Don't even get me started. If Brad's doing like an underhand stab like this, and now I'm trying to be strong here and accurate here and here, come on. It defies the laws of physics and nature and everything. That I can be really strong and accurate here and here. Come on. Where in your life do you ever do any movement like this? Where I have to be really strong this way and really strong this way at the same time and really accurate. It just doesn't happen. So, again, if we take the 35-year-old soccer mom or dad or the 45-year-old accountant that you're going to see twice a week, and he's going to see this maybe twice a month, it's just not realistic to think that they're going to be able to pull that off. And I'm not even talking about with a knife. I mean, with a knife, who knows how many times they'll see that? Very little, probably. Where with our approach, all of the moves and movements that are seminal to making this work in real time, they see from day one. And probably close to every day in some way. My classes are always warming up with arm drags and pummeling. Always. Shadowboxing, functional stuff that's going to translate into what we need them to do in that class. I'm not doing a lot of jumping jacks and things like that. I can get the same cardiovascular benefit, the same emotional readiness benefit from pummeling, and they'll actually get a skill set that's going to translate into fighting as opposed to jumping jacks or whatever. And again, they're feeling real energy, real pressure, as opposed to something in a vacuum or something that's theoretical or whatever. But we know wrestling works. There's no doubt that wrestling works. Muay Thai works. These things work. And it's not a knock against Krav Maga. There are huge benefits in Krav Maga, and for the very most part, what we teach is 95% what other people teach in Krav Maga. But when it comes to this especially, there's some tweaks here and there, but to knife especially, I have zero belief and zero faith in the average person being able to pull something like this off in real time. And, again, if people want to do it, they feel good about it, fine, get after it. But I know for me and for us and our students, I wholeheartedly believe that our approach is more holistic and more consistent with everything else that we're doing, and it just enhances survivability as opposed to things that are not terribly natural, are not terribly innate, are not, because again, just the basic idea of getting this hand to do this and this hand to do this, to think that I'll look center mass while the knife is coming at me from here, these things just don't hold up under stress. They don't. And then I can never actually really do it. Well, you can put a helmet on and you can put a glove on. Yeah, okay. But me hitting a big helmet with a 16-ounce glove, it's not terribly difficult to do. When I know He's just coming straight in on me. But now try to take these two knuckles and put them on that chin when I don't necessarily know what the attack's going to be. That's hard. So, anyway, we'll drill knife, but I wanted to preface it with this. And look, I'm not saying we're the holy grail of knife. I'm not any of that stuff. I can only tell you what we believe to be, with what we know right now, based on our decades of experience in a lot of different martial arts and combat sports, and talking and working with law enforcement and military of all levels. We can only go with what we believe to be best right now in this moment in time, and this is it. It changes, but we truly are a system that evolves. We're not going to hold on to something just because we put it in a manual or on a book or on a DVD, or that's what so and so did 10, 15, 20, 35 years ago, whatever, it doesn't matter. If one of my instructors comes to me tomorrow and they say, I've been working on this thing and I think we should look at it, then we'll look at it. And we'll really look at it, and we'll really pressure test it, and we'll really put it in the lab and see what we come out with. So, questions?